Good morning, everybody in Ocala. Good morning, everybody around the world that's watching today's program. This is a Compass to MS Care program provided only by MS Views and News. All right, and today's program, our sponsors that support this program are Genentech, Banner Life Sciences, and Bristol-Myers Squibb. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. All right. I hope that for those that are here that you got to go around to the different tables and see who was sponsoring today, who was the display sponsors rather, and those were Genentech, Banner, Alexion, Bristol-Myers Squibb, and TG Therapeutics. I'm sure they all had plenty of good information to give you. For those online, if you need to find out about it, you could go to each of their websites. Today's program, again, it's a Compass to MS Care program. My name is Stuart Schlossman, president and founder of MS Views and News. Been doing this for quite some time. We're going to introduce Jeff Segal. Come on up, Jeff Segal.
Hello. You guys hear me in the back? Well, first of all, I want to thank every single one of you individually. And I'm not going to come and thank each of you individually. But I'm so happy that you guys made it here today and stayed as long as you did, because a lot of the times when I give presentations, by the time I'm speaking, half the crowd's gone. And then I hear that feedback from them wishing that they had heard it, and then they get to, the great thing is they get to watch it online after these are done. Haven't been doing a lot of programs for many reasons, specifically COVID had gotten in the way, and I've done programs from my home. My home is like my research area. I do research on myself before I bring the exercises and the movements and the different programs to the people I work with. By doing that, it makes me able to do it really easily. And if I show somebody else how to do something and I can't do it, the chances of them being able to do it or them being able to believe that they can do it decrease tremendously. So I'll master something of, whatever it is, as long as it's within my ability. And that's something everybody in here has to recognize, is what your ability is and is not. Because you've got ability, you're here, you guys are motivated, you had desire, you had enough desire. The desire is the one thing that allows you to reach your goals. And if you fail, it's okay. How many people here fear failure? Well, if you've never failed, I can guarantee you one thing: you probably haven't had much success. Because failure and success go hand in hand. If Thomas Edison was here, we could ask him, but he's not. He's not here to help out with that. But if you understand that idea, you're probably going to try something several times before you master it. Is every time you try these specific things, are they failures? No. They're stepping stones. And we have to get from A to Z somehow. When we were children, we learned the alphabet. That was one of the first things we learned, whatever language it was. We'd learn the alphabet. If you can't say a particular letter, you can't complete the alphabet. So you failed at that letter until you were taught properly. What does this have to do with exercise? Everybody in this room has probably been taught to exercise in an incorrect way at some point in their life. Primarily younger in their lives, because exercise research has come so far and there's not been as much to support it financially. So coaches and strength coaches and teams, that's how we get a lot of our information. Some's done in labs. I've done a lot of research on MS patients. One-on-one research where I'm calculating what this particular person's doing and in response to different exercises, and groups I've worked with. I stopped working with a group that I was doing a 10-week program with about just before COVID, thinking I was going elsewhere. And I still have the research, I still have the data, and the one thing that all the data supports is that movement at an increased level than what you're used to doing, and when done correctly, works. Go figure. How many people in here don't exercise because they're afraid they're not going to be able to do what they did when they did the very best exercise they ever did in their life? How many of you think about that? People do think about that. And if you don't think about it, you just go ahead and try to do it, and then that's a real failure. That's when you don't want to come back and exercise ever again, because you realize 30 years ago when you were able to dunk a basketball or run a 40-yard dash in whatever time it was, today's not that day. Today's, decades later of not doing it. So same thing goes to flexibility and just any kind of movement. Strength is key. Now, what I do for a living is increase people's strength. That's what I want people to do. Not just muscle strength, and I want endurance, I want cardiorespiratory strength, I want mental strength. Because without mental strength, you know what you have? A bunch of wants, right? And you know how much that weighs? Nothing. Weighs absolutely nothing. And weight control is big with MS. It should be on your mind. If you're overweight and you have MS, you're carrying an extra load. Now you have MS to carry an extra weight, and it is heavy. I don't know which one's heavier, but I've got both. Not right now. Right now I've got just MS. But my transition of having MS was a difficult one because I went against everything that your doctors are telling you when it comes to predicting what's going to happen to someone who has MS. The first 3 years of having MS for me, the majority were in a chair. They were the first 4 years. And then the rest of the time has been nothing but living my life. But I have been researching exercise and MS for 25 years now. That's half my life. And I've been working with people with MS for over 20 years. So I say it's more than half my life. Because the first couple of years of your life, you're not talking and conversing, you're just kind of a sponge and absorbing and not remembering everything because there's so much to remember. And when you look at a child, how many of you are forgetful? If you don't raise your hand, then I'm assuming you can't raise your hand. You know why children remember so well? Because they know so little. So everything that they have put in front of them is pretty cool, right? I mean, when we see something new, we remember it for a short period of time because we got to put it in a file of the millions of other things that we saw that were new. You know, for all the years that I've been here, I mean, I want new stuff, I want to learn, I want to share it with you, and I want to share all of my experiences with other people who live your life so that way you can live your life better. And that's what we're here for, right? We want to live better. We have to act to do so. But I really, 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 really want to get a lot of questions today because I have a bag of equipment and I've got enough knowledge to talk for about 15 years. But I would miss out on sleep. So out of those 15 years of information that I have to give you, I've got a lot of answers. I've worked with a lot of people. I've worked with people, and it really is annoying because I work with people that tell me stuff that they don't tell their doctors. And you know what my response to that is? How can you expect your doctor to help you? If you're not honest with your doctor, because the best case scenario for me working with a patient that has MS is that they sign off their HIPAA so I can talk to their doctors and vice versa. Because the information that I provide to their doctors is going to increase the ability for their doctor to be able to treat them. And for the doctors to tell me what they're actually being given in medication-wise allows me to work with them at the optimal times. They can time their medicine. What time of the day is best for you is important because if it's the worst time of day, you're not going to do it. If everybody in this room were to exercise as much as they thought about exercising, we'd have a bunch of Olympians in here, I think. Because I know from talking, I have people that call me and they say, well, I'm still thinking about doing it. But I'm going to call you next month because next month and I know they're going to call the next month and tell me in 3 months or whatever else. There's some people that just don't want to do it. Don't call me if you don't want to do it. Call me if you want to regain what you lost. Is that what you want? If you lost something, you want to find it. I can't guarantee you're going to regain it, but I can guarantee you that you're going to come out better than you went in. As long as you give me your all, I'll give you my all, and that's how we proceed. I will not ask someone to do something that I believe they cannot do. But if I believe they can do it, you better believe I'm going to have them do it. Every time I get a new person that I'm working with that has MS, the first things I want to know is, can you stand out of a chair? That's without using your hands. I've got a whole bunch of ways to stand up out of a chair without using your hands. I can tell you the first way that you're going to fail by doing is by thinking that you can't. If you think you can't, you won't be able to stand out of a chair. You know why? Because if you think you can't, then in your mind, getting out of a chair means a fall. So one of the tactics that I use is if you're going to get up out of a chair, make sure you're getting up forward. Physics. Anybody here like physics? No? We're physics. I mean, how we move, the lever class systems that we use, that's how I build programs. A first and second class lever is much more mechanically advantaged than a third class lever. Unfortunately, we're built of a third class lever system, primarily. So a bicep curl, which is good for building a bicep muscle, not as much the movement spectrum, that's the third class lever. That's very difficult to do versus a tricep extension, which is a second class lever. There's just, if you don't understand the concepts of that, and yeah, it might have been a long time since you took physics or geometry or that type of stuff. But it's all present in daily life. Even balance. If somebody can't balance on one leg, you know what that tells me? They're not going to do it for their doctor either. But you don't see a bunch of people standing like this because they can stand on one leg, right? It's cool, right? I mean, it's like, wow, I can do it. This is what I do when I work with someone who doesn't have MS, and I see if they can do this and close their eyes and still do it. Because taking vision away, that takes proprioception away. Proprioception is the ability to know where you are in space. So if anybody would like to stand up right now and try this, especially if you're a partner or somebody who does not have MS. Anyone want to come up here and try this out? All right, come on up. So the way we move and what creates our balance and our stability is what we see, what we hear, what we feel, all those things. So you're not an MS patient.
Oh, I am.
You are an MS patient.
I am.
You missed that part.
Oh, I
But what I am going to have you do, I'm going to show you the difference between balance and stability. Do you want to be stable or balanced?
Stable.
Yeah, stable. Balance, remember, balance is that. You can be the Karate Kid. It worked for him, but
No.
I don't want to be him either. This is stability. Okay, so I want you to stand like this. Okay, now put your hands like this. She's in the ready position. So if she was to be moved a little bit, what she could do is take a step back. There. That's what you're supposed to do when you're pushed. But she's strong enough in her core. Now put your hands like this. Resist and breathe. Keep breathing. Where do you feel it?
Right now in my back.
In your back? How about this way?
Lower back.
Okay, so have you had back problems?
Yes.
Okay, are you okay being videoed right now? I didn't ask you that to start, but yes? Okay. All right, so if you have back problems, then that's not an MS back problem, is it? It could be from a movement or something that you did differently from having MS. We don't know. We don't know the cause of the effect, but you see the difference between balance and stability. Now put your feet together. So now I'm gonna have somebody else come up here and do this. Just stand there and look at me. Can you feel yourself wobbling a little bit? Okay, now what I want you to do, stay like that. Close your eyes. Can you, all right. All right, do you see now that's taking, you can open your eyes now. Did you feel yourself all over the place?
Yes.
Okay, could you guys see that? That's because take your vision away, that's a sense. Keep your feet together, now you don't have your wide base of support, so you're somewhat balancing on 2 feet. But that's what I teach people to do. Then what I like to do is make sure people can perform in these environments. So if you're walking through the hall or something and someone bumps into you, stability is what's going to keep you and have the ability to move and not fall over. And that all comes from the core peripheral. Starts here, goes out. If you have a weak core, the only time you're going to be able to do something, weightlifting or lift something heavy, is probably from a seated supported position. So thank you very much for coming up. Now I want someone to come up here who doesn't have MS. Please, if you don't have MS and you're here, do you know how difficult it is for the people who are here with MS to actually make it here? So if you don't come up, you're not going to be a good role model for them. Thank you. You had to do it, right? All right, here, thank you. All right, are you okay being videoed? All right, so I'm going to do the same test. You lift weights?
Used to.
Okay, used to. That's we all used to exercise. But that's the one thing about strength training is it lasts a lot longer than cardiorespiratory training. If you build a lot of muscle up, it takes a lot of time of not doing anything for it to go away. So do you have any back problems or No? So you're not the norm. Most people have back problems. I mean, it just happens. So what I want to do is I want to show you what core strength can do. Did you ever bench press?
Yes.
Did you ever do push-ups? Yeah. Okay. Stand like you are right now. Put one hand forward. Now what I want you to do is try to push your hand forward. Try to push as hard as you can. Use all your might. You won't go anywhere, right?
Right.
Because you need to work on your core. You feel this? Okay, now let's try this side. You can't go anywhere with it. A little bit. You're going to move backwards, if anything. That's stability. So if you work from your core out, so that's what I like to do is I like using bands and stuff like that where you're standing with your feet on the ground. When your feet are the basic support of what you're doing, you can use your peripheral muscles better. So now what I'm going to do is come step forward a little bit. I don't want you near that. Okay, now I want you feet touching each other. Mm-hmm. Okay, now just stand there. So just by having your feet like that, you should feel a little bit off, not as stable. Mm-hmm. Okay, now what I want you to do is look up. Now the scary part, close your eyes. So you don't have MS, and this is how people with MS feel a lot of the time, standing with a wide base of support, eyes open, knees bent, and with full function. So when somebody says, I don't feel right, or something's wrong, it doesn't take much for someone with MS to not feel right. Now, I want you to stand on one foot.
Been a while since I've done that.
That's okay. Now, I'm going to let you do it a third time now. Now, on 3, you'll keep it. Watch this. The right. Now you got to practice it. Not third attempt. Now. Okay. After 3 attempts, I said that twice with each foot. You see how well he's doing? Close your eyes. Okay. It's not going to happen, right? Okay. You can go. You can go have a seat. Thank you for coming up here. So, 2 things that we discovered. Practice does work. It doesn't matter when in life you do it, practice does pay off. If you don't practice something, you're not going to perfect something. He tried to stand on one foot twice with his left. He didn't give it the 3rd try. I was hoping he was going to because he would have done well on number 3. Then when he went to the other foot, he put his foot down twice. Then he stood up. He was there. You know what that's called? Neurological adaptation. That's something that a lot of people with MS take time or a lot longer to adapt to a movement or a position, but he was able to do it. And it was without a balance bracelet. Have any of you ever heard about the balance bracelets? They're pretty much come and gone, but that's how they sold them. They'd be at the mall, put the bracelet on, stand on one leg. They'd say, don't put the bracelet on. They'd say, okay, try it again. Okay, the 3rd time, now do it with the bracelet. Now, had I given him a bracelet just now, and the 3rd time he tried, and he stayed on one leg, everyone in here would have been coming up to me after I was done speaking and saying, where can I get one of those? And I'd have to come up with something that looked like a bracelet that was going to help you. But that's how many scams that are out there. There's scams everywhere you look. The one thing that we have in common is we want to enjoy life. Am I right? Okay, and we want to be able to move. And I'm going to tell you what, to me, these are the most important things in life. Trust, not the most important, but close to it. Oxygen, the most important thing around us. Water, food, and movement and mobility. With those things, also happiness. The emotional side of enjoyment. But that, without the other things, you won't get to the happiness. But when you get to the happiness and the time when you want to go out and do something, whether it's start an exercise program, if you were to come to me, and this is what kills me about a lot of the stuff you see on the internet. Everybody's different. I mean, really different. Or we'd all have the same name. I mean, come on. We're different, we look different, our mechanics are different, our disease activity is different. The way we respond to exercise is different. The way we recover is different. Then throwing MS in the loop, it changes the whole course of everything. And believe it or not, I train every single person that has MS differently, but I start them off as if they did not have MS. And I work backwards because I know what the don'ts are. I know the temperature, what's the best temperatures to exercise. The recommendations are 66 to 70 degrees indoors. If you think 70 degrees is too cold to exercise, you're not exercising enough. But those make your bodies work optimally. Is there a chair someone's not using?
Let me get it for you.
Thank you. I'd go get it, but I'd squeak. So this is one of my bags of tricks. I'm going to show you the standing and sitting that I was talking about before. And I want you to understand that, like I was telling you, every program is different, everybody's ability to stand is different, and everybody's ability to enjoy what they're doing is different as well. If you want to have fun, there's so many things you can do to have fun. I don't leave home without a balloon. Balloons are fun, right? They remind us of our childhood. So if I do stuff with a balloon, I got one for a girl, one for a boy, and one for an MS patient. So if I notice that somebody's standing up like this, can you guys see me in the back? Can you see my legs? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll show you in a minute. I have a massage table there that I use primarily for stretching. I'll get on that so someone in the back that can't see up here can see. If I see somebody that stands up, mostly men will do this. Mostly men without MS. But what they would do is, a man is more likely to stand up with their legs out, moving outward, while a woman is more likely to buckle their knees more when they get up. The reason for that is men usually sit like this, women usually sit like that, right? That's the primary reason why men and women's hips are different, have differences in the way when they stand up. So if the knees flared out, I have some people that are all the way out here. I would put something like this and have them stand with this between their knees and do repetitions of that, or do squats with something between their knees. On the contrary, I'd put a band around their knees, or my hands holding their knees while they're standing up. How many people in here cannot do a squat? Well, I've seen you do squats, so how many people really can't do a squat? You? How many people in here that can't do a squat can stand out of a chair? Any of you can stand out of a chair that can't do a squat? You can't? I can't?
Leg doesn't work.
Okay, that means one leg works.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes.
So standing up with your knees being held in, that will help your external rotators and your abductors. Abductors move your feet apart, your knees apart. So that's one of the cool things. There's smaller ones for people who don't have as much issue with that, like this. These are all inexpensive things you could buy at the store. This is what you were asking me about, right? Okay, so these are great because you can throw them at people and they won't hurt. Or they can be thrown at me and I won't get hurt, right? That's the goal, is to keep everybody safe and healthy. So back to what I was saying with oxygen and water. Water. If you don't drink enough water, you know what you're doing? You're increasing your chances and likelihood of having spasticity. Because without water means you're without electrolytes. So if you don't use the restroom every couple hours, if you sit at a computer for hours and hours at a time, I already know you're dehydrated. I know that for a fact, because you got to be drinking. And then if you drink enough, you'll have to get up and go to the bathroom, or however you're going to get to the bathroom, you're going to go to the bathroom. You're going to find a way. I ask people all these things because when I start working with them and throughout, I talk as if I'm speaking to a group of people like I am right now when I'm talking to an individual client, because without talking and getting feedback, I don't know what's really going on inside their head. I'm hoping that they're following my instructions, which if they aren't, we work on it, but I want feedback from them, A. B, I want to hear the tone of their voice. If they can't catch their breath and they can't give me an answer or carry on a conversation, I got to step it back a little bit. I also continually ask, do you feel pain? Are you hurting? Does that hurt? You've heard me say that, right? Constantly. And the majority of the time, people say no, even if they do have pain. pain is not something that I get mad at somebody for. Pain is something I want to work around because I don't want to have pain. And if I have pain, I'm going to do something that's not going to cause the pain. And if you have pain, I'm going to try to do my best to teach you something similar, but that's not painful. But an exercise is an exercise. These new fad exercises and these new 10-minute things that people are doing, they're great if you don't have more than 10 minutes to do it. If you think you can't exercise more than 10 minutes, I don't know if you're right or wrong, because you're all individuals. But I have a feeling that you can exercise for more than 10 minutes. Maybe not how you did when you were 12, but the way you are right now. Because 2 weeks ago, I left someone who was 97 years old, who I just trained for an hour, and went to somebody who was 35 years old, and the 35-year-old told me, I think anything more than 35 minutes is just too much for me. Well, in that 35 minutes, that would include a warm-up, a cool-down, and some exercise, right? I mean, but that wasn't the case. They just didn't want it. They didn't desire it. I didn't do my job because I didn't make them have a good enough time while they were doing it. I have to remember and to remind them, look at yourself in the mirror. That's your competition. You hear that? What's in the mirror is your competition, nobody else. If you do better, that person that's looking back at you in the mirror, that's who you want to be happy. Because if you're not making yourself happy, the people around you are going to see that, and they're going to feel bad for you. And how many people here like when people feel bad for them? No, you want to be that person that did it. You want to say, I did it, I was able to. I had the ability, I thought I didn't, but I did, and now I'm able to succeed. Okay, who wants to have a little fun? I want two people who can stand on their feet right now and to come up here because I'm going to do something. And if you can't, I'll let you sit down. Everything that I do has an alternative, but the one alternative is I can't make somebody appear here. I can try magic, but so somebody's got to come up here, and it will not be difficult. Once you're up here, come on. Do I have to pay you? I can tell you jokes until you go, all right, I like it. Are you okay being filmed? Okay, thank you. She said she's okay being filmed. All right, we got 3 people now. So now that's okay. We've got 3 people. Okay, so are you okay being filmed?
Yeah.
How about when you come up? Are you okay being filmed? You're all right? Okay.
As long as they don't fall.
Can you jump through this? No. Yeah, I can, but it'll break. I want you to stand try to get both feet in it. If you can't, just put one foot in. You can put one foot in there.
Okay.
Just because I see the way you're standing,
Okay.
it'd be hard for you to get 2 feet in. If you can get both feet in, do. If you can't, just put one in. Okay, so do you know what exercise actually is? It's just doing more. Doing more at a higher level than you're used to doing. There's specific exercises and rep ranges for building muscle and power. I'm used to be in that phase where I want to be big. I was more than 100 pounds bigger than I am now, and I realized I wasn't as agile, and I don't eat as much now, so it's impossible. So what I want you to do, catch that. Now throw it to her. You know what happens if you miss it, right? I'll get it for you.
Okay.
Just, yeah. Now throw it to her.
Oops.
Keep yourself in the circle there. Okay, now you can throw it to any one of them. Now I want you guys to pay attention. Keep going, keep going. You can do it as fast as you want, just don't throw it at me. Okay, now get it. Now throw it. Throw it. That's okay. Here we go. Throw it. Throw it. Throw it. Throw it to her. You can throw it to anyone you want. Here you go. Just throw it. Keep it going. 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 Keep it going.
Oh, sorry.
I got it. I got it. Just stay in your circle. You're good. All right. How are you guys doing? Keep going. Keep going. You got a little bit winded? I hear people breathing. That's a good thing. Okay, one thing that they all have in common. Everyone look that way. Are any of them not smiling? Now, can you tell me that if you were to do this for 30 minutes, there wouldn't be more than what you normally do for 30 minutes in just the middle of the day?
It'd probably be more than what I usually do.
Right. Is it difficult?
Not really.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah.
It's just, I just made this up. I didn't plan this. You guys had 3 people come up here. But that's the beauty of increased movement if you enjoy it. You'll want to keep doing it. I know you want to throw it here. Throw it here. I see her. She's ready to get that out of her hand. It's not going to explode. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, so here you go. Now, other things that we can do is, now this one may not be the best for you guys, but it's not impossible. So I'm just gonna let you feel what it's like. What I do is I progress to something like this. That's 2 pounds, you can throw it to me. So knowing that it's 2 pounds here.
It feels different.
So and then this one here, this is 8 pounds. So throw it here.
Oh, gosh.
Do you have children?
Yes.
Were they ever 8 pounds?
Yes.
Okay.
At one time,
I don't want it to come. I don't want. Okay. So here, let me see that. So what I do then is, I get people like this. You start them out with something light like that. You guys had fun with that. I'll add it to 2 pounds. I have a 2 pound one about this size as well. Then you start throwing it with a 2 pound ball to each other. Eventually you get to an 8 pound. I have a 10. I get up to 20 pound medicine balls. That's exercise. It doesn't mean that you're, okay, you got to do 10 more at this speed and this and that, but when you get too tired, then you failed. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. You want to exercise to failure. With MS, you want to exercise just before failure. So you want, when I say failure, I mean like as if you're exercising, let's say you're doing something with resistance, the last rep you can't do, that means that last rep did more for you than any of the other reps you did. So if you have a spotter, yes, that's an okay thing. But if you don't have a spotter, wait till there's one left in the tank. Same thing with something like this. Now do you have any back issues? Or the most enjoyable thing about this, what I want you to do is, wait. I want you to throw it as hard as you can. Try to go in the middle of that ball. You can lift it up. You can do anything you want. Throw it really hard. That feel good? All right, you want to do it again? Here, do it one more time. Do it a little bit harder.
Oh, great.
You got it?
Yeah. I don't have good balance.
Nah, you don't have good balance, but you have balance.
Yes.
It's present. You're standing. I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
So something like that could become something that's, and I can tell you that if you're upset about something after doing this 10 times, you won't be so upset about it anymore. Same thing if you go for a walk or do something. Thank you guys for coming up here. I got some more stuff for other people, but thank you so much. You enjoy that?
Yes.
Okay, so you got a few minutes of exercise that you didn't plan on doing today, right? All right, so you're ahead of the game. Good job. So I'm proud of these people. That's something that people don't say enough, that people don't hear enough. If someone tells you that they are proud of you, that goes a long way. And I'm proud of every single one of you for being here, because there's a lot of other things you could have done. Does anybody have any questions while I'm getting another piece of equipment out? Anybody have any questions? A to Z exercise. I got the encyclopedia up here. I'm just using part of it. I'll repeat it. I'll repeat the question back.
Does walking help with MS?
Does walking help with MS?
And roughly how many miles is good to actually walk?
And how many miles is actually good to walk? Okay, good question. Okay, here's the answer. If you walk more than you can, and you walk too much, there's a problem there, because you're not going to make it back, right? So everybody's got a different time that's good for them to walk, that's best for them. So for instance, if you wanted to give it a shot and walk for, see how far you can go, and make sure you do it in a circular way somehow so that you can still make it back, But what you want to do is you want to get to a certain point and realize this is how far I was able to go that day. And use that as your baseline. And then increase it a little bit and a little bit. The amount, if it goes on for more than an hour, then you can try to go faster. And if the speed is not working, walking is great. If you can walk and you don't, you're not going to be able to. You hear me? If you walk and you decide it's not something you want to do, then you're giving up on it. That's the kind of failure that's not acceptable. But do you understand the answer to my question? The amount of aerobic exercise that you should do could be up to an hour, 3 to 4 times a week. Depends on the person.
No. Let's do Q&A at the end, please, so I can run around the microphone.
Okay, so I got another thing. I'll get your question after that, but write it down so you don't forget it, because I'll forget to remind you. Okay, anyone ever seen one of these before? Not the kind that come out of a helicopter. Okay, who wants to come to this? Any volunteers? Well, I'm going to put this on the ground. I'm going to lay it flat. Okay, this is called an agility ladder. It does not work at all unless you come up to the front of the room. All right, so first off, are you okay being videoed?
Yes.
Okay, what symptoms of MS bother you the most physically?
I may have a little bit all of them, but I'm not too sure because I've never really I can do almost anything when I want to do it. So I'm not trying.
But you must. Does MS give you any limitations?
It's probably supposed to, but like I said, I never really. When I was diagnosed with it, I didn't really understand it.
Got it. But you're starting to understand it now?
Maybe just a little.
All right. You guys saw what this is, right? Everybody in here. What I want you to do is I want you to walk starting at the first one, just 1 foot in each. And let me tell you, he's got some big shoes, so it's hard for him to get his feet in there. Was that difficult at all? Okay, now what I want you to do is sidestep in it, like this. No, just come all the way this way. Step, keep. Now go back. All right, so you're good on your feet. Sidestepping is one of the most important things because we fall when we sidestep and don't catch our balance. So, but it seems easy, right? Okay, that's okay, because it should seem easy. Because if it didn't seem easy, then somebody who had less ability than you wouldn't be able to use it. So what these replaced were the tires. Remember the tires? You ever see those in television that football players did? I used to do that. Every time we'd do it, we'd see people breaking their ankles and stuff. They still do it, but they get paid to do it now. So something like this, you could do so many things with. Face this way. What I want you to say right at the end, I want you to start with your left foot, go in with your left, in with your right, out with your right. In, left, try it. You got it? So step. Now step back with your left. Same, watch me. In with your left, go ahead. Step in with your left, in with your right, out with your left, out with your right. Step back in with your left, and back. So doing that, not as easy as the other one, right? So if I had someone perfect this, what I would do is this. You gotta make sure you're in the right spot. There you go. So it has to be entertaining, right? You have to have a lot of. Now it's getting to you. This doesn't make a difference if you had MS or not because it's the first time you've tried this. And anytime you try something for the first time, just like I said with the standing on 1 foot, you have to neurologically acclimate to that movement. So it's. So you did a great job. You can have a seat. Thank you so much for coming up and doing that. Now I don't know everybody's ability when they come up here. So I'm not going to give somebody something too difficult, but there's the sky's the limit in using something like this. If you had a wheelchair, you can roll it. As long this you'd have to have a partner with, and do side slams. And then roll it up, person give it to you, slam it to the side, keep it in the box. Keep it in a square. That's something else that's fun to do with this that's going to help with mobility, help with core. If you can't walk, but you can crawl, 1 foot in, 1 hand in. Your knees and your hands become the driver. If you can do anything and you have MS, then you should do everything. You know, you can do stuff like what I showed him, what it would really look like. That was my warning. Is this. But if I had him do that to start, he would fail, and he'd never want to do that again. Or with your hands, just doing like making sure you get your hands in each of the things, or coming in and out with your hands. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Some people I've even had do like a hop. Now, with their good leg. The sky's the limit. You progress when you exercise. You build on the capacity to do the exercises. Your body acclimates and you get better and conditioned. And the more conditioned you are, the more you can do. After 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, the neurological adaptations of a movement have happened. That's when muscle growth starts. Strength starts prior to that. But if you're acclimated to the movement, strength is, as much as you want. If you follow a program, if you desire doing something like this, it's for you. It's for everybody. If you can only do it with 1 finger, do it with 1 finger. But life left unused is that. And we got a lot of life in this room. So use it. Use it, use it, use it, do it, practice it, perfect it, and then show off. That's your way of teaching it. The kind of person I am, I don't give up. When it came to finding stuff that was helpful for MS that my doctors didn't have knowledge on, I researched it. I already went to college for this, so I kind of fell into the right place, but I have neurologists calling me to ask me exercise questions about their patients. And that's very humbling because it tells me that they are a phenomenal doctor because they know it's something they don't know and they're reaching out to someone who does. So not only have I studied it, researched it, but I've lived it. And I've lived it pretty well for 25 years now. So that's what I want everybody in here to take from this. You've got a lot of life in you. Let it be used. Enjoy it. Share it with your loved ones. Share it with your family. Because if everybody around you saw you doing what you're really able to do rather than what you say you'd like to do, you'd have a very happy crew. Thank you guys very much. I'm ready for some questions.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, anybody in the audience have a question? Great. I'm going to come over to you all in a minute. I'm going to start with one online. Person wanted to know if you do anything online so that way they can watch you online.
Yeah, I do stuff from home. So when I stopped getting programs as much more than 1 or 2 a year, I started to do 1 or 2 a week from my house. All the people who've been asking me to speak would come to my Facebook page and they'd be able to see what the exercise of the week was or what the talk of the week was. So I'm going to start doing that again because that's the only way that I can get out what I have and the knowledge that I have, answer the questions I have, and from my living room too. But Mondays and Tuesdays are when I'll do that. So if you look me up on Facebook, you can find it. Just look for the post of me doing a program, and whenever I do something like that, I'll post it in advance. Online exercise, I want to say something quick about. If there's a large group of people that one person's looking at doing a bunch of different exercises that have limitations, personally, I don't go there because if one person had fallen or did something wrong or a slight incorrect movement that could hurt them, I wouldn't see it. And if I did, then I'm leaving the other group not visible to me. So that's my take on it. I'm not big on it, but if it's the only option you have, then do it safely.
So you said you were in a wheelchair for a few years. What was it that just made you say, I'm not going to be there?
The floor. Honestly. I was in it for about a year, and every day I attempted, I did. I put my foot on the ground and then my face on the ground until I realized that this isn't going the right way, so I got to try something different. There's got to be something in between those two. And I ended up crawling or using my upper body to drag my legs, and then I used my cadence in my crawl to help with my gait, because it's the same cadence. And slowly but surely I was able to get up, and once I got up, that was it. You'd need a linebacker to get me down.
Next question's over here. Thank you.
Yes. Do you have certain exercises? Like I do have very little balance, but I get tired of calling 911 when I fall. And so what exercises would be good for that? If I did fall, to get back up. Leg exercises?
I'll tell you, there's so many, but first off, bridges. If you want to get up, bridges, because a bridge mimics part of the hip extension. So, can you see me there? When you do that, look, when you get up, and this is from a chair, I understand, I can't do it from the ground or nobody would see, but if you go from here to here, to here, to here, that's hip extension. That's the same movement that you do when you do a bridge. When you lift your butt up, that's a great exercise for it. Also your hands, if you can stay on your hands and practice just getting on your knees and holding yourself on your hands, because your hands are what's going to be your driver. Now, as far as getting up, there's so many different ways. If you can get one foot in front of the other and climb up your body, that's one way. Or if you can get a wide base of support, the wider the better, because the lever is shorter, and get yourself up to here, it's less distance to get up. So yeah, you're working on your arms, but it's not a lot of movement, and if your legs are wide. Same thing for legs for people whose knees flare out. If you can't stand up out of a chair and you put your legs this way and you keep falling back into the chair, I'm barely leaning at all when I do this, right? But when you stand up out of a chair, you're coming forward, but you'll end up falling back if you know the chair's there, if you don't feel like you're going to take a step forward. But there's hundreds of ways. Every individual person has a different way that's best for them to get up off the ground. Best way to fix that is not fall. So work on that core.
Okay, from online first. Person wants to know where to start. I mean, should they start with a physical therapist to learn what they should be doing because they don't want to do the wrong thing on their own?
Well, okay, physical therapy and exercise physiology are two complete different things. It's like going to a rheumatologist versus a neurologist for your MS. A physical therapist is corrective. It's going to help enhance whatever's not on that movement screen that should be. And if that's not needed, yes, they're safe. That's the best thing about physical therapy is the safety part of it. They can tell you where to start. As far as developing a program, you'd want to get into an exercise physiologist or a personal trainer because they're working on more performance rather than fine-tuning. So that's where you can start, but starting begins with the desire to start. And starting means with a step forward. Whatever it is, towards the gym, towards the bathroom, towards whatever it is, but away from where you're comfortable, sitting down, doing nothing. So start slow. But if you start by doing something for 2 minutes, your goal should be more than 2 minutes the next day. Just like when there's children, and I have a group of children that I've done this with children, the goal isn't to produce Michael Jordan. The goal is to have all the children want to come back tomorrow. And that's the same thing when it comes to exercise. If I chase you away, you're not coming back. If it's something that you enjoyed, like you did up here, you want more.
You talked about, I think you called it neural adaptation. When does that transition into neuroplasticity?
It is neuroplasticity. I mean, that's starting to do a movement and learn, and your body making the movement smooth. So if you were to do something that's, now I've already adapted to this movement, but I'm going to pretend as if I didn't. So if I was to do, say, a reach with one hand and touch this, and I was, as you practice and practice, that's when it happens. So going from that to just barely being able to then being able to do it in repetitions. And that's something that, after a while, you fall, if you lose balance, you get right back and you start because you know that you can do it. But neural adaptation comes from any movement that's new that you do. If it's a new movement, your body does not know how to do it smoothly, and it has to learn. So everyone's different. It's just like how you in particular would stand out of a chair. At first it was difficult, impossible, right? And then it became, how many more do I do? I just did 15, right? So that's not doing the impossible, it's just doing. Any other?
All right, next question. How much exercise is too much exercise?
Fortunately, not too many people get to that point, but it's also unfortunate. Too much exercise is when it has negative responses. When you do too much exercise, you can overtrain, and it's basically, you think you're going to get the benefits of exercise, but you're losing benefits and you're diminishing your abilities because you've done too much. If you start to do too much, I think you should talk with somebody and let them see what your program is. But when you start getting, especially pertaining to MS, this is an MS program, too much exercise is when you start to feel MS. When you start to feel that, because we do feel MS, right? Like when it gets really hot out and you're stuck in the heat and something starts to tingle, or you're in the heat and one leg starts to drag, or you exercise for a period of time that everything is perfectly fine and then you start to drag a leg, that's the end. That's when your limit was reached. So when that time comes, make a note of it, that if you get to that point again and you're not feeling that way, you may want to do it a little bit more. Then you've got a progressive program that's working. But that's how you can find your limits.
What's the proper temperature to be exercising in?
Indoors, it's 66 to 70 degrees for MS patients, 66 to 74 for non-MS patients, and in aquatic, it's 80 degrees and 80 to 84 degrees for non-MS patients. And if you get in the water and it's 80 degrees, it's going to feel cold to you, especially here in Florida. But that's the proper way. You're not going to get hurt. It's not going to be, you're not going to overdo it in that temperature.
What to do for exercise if a person has a bodily injury, and how do they do those exercises?
If somebody has a bodily injury,
that's what the question was. How about if a person has a leg injury? How would they do your pendulum thing?
they wouldn't. I wouldn't have. If someone has a leg injury, we'll work around the injury. You don't work through it. If you have an injury that needs, that's going to change your gait or change the way you move, that's when you use physical therapy. And if it doesn't require physical therapy, because some injuries don't require physical therapy, they heal on their own, you just do the exercises that aren't aggravating that injury. That's the best way I could answer that, because it's not very specific.
Okay, a person is asking how long it took you to not need a wheelchair.
Okay.
That's difficult because she's in a wheelchair, and I don't think that you can answer
I
this
got an
question.
answer for that. Everybody in a wheelchair is in a wheelchair for somewhat of a different reason. Every single person. Some it's choice. Some it's because one leg does not work at all. Some it's because their arms aren't strong enough and one leg isn't working well and they can't use a walker. So they could be in a chair. So getting out of a chair and what it takes to get out of a chair is an individual's question. And it's different. If I gave the answer, it took me a year, a full year of trying and doing little bits at a time. I can't tell you that that's going to work for the next person, but I can tell you that if you don't do that little bit of a time and you don't try to do it, you will be in the chair and you won't get out. It's just like someone who doesn't walk that can, and eventually tries to walk and they no longer can walk.
Thank you. Next question is, what do you recommend for people with foot drop?
Foot drop, okay, well, if you have foot drop, I really don't like that question, because foot drop is out of your control. It's the control of the little monster in the brain or the spinal cord. They're pulling all the strings. So with foot drop, there are exercises that you can do to help the muscles that are responsible for foot drop. However, the muscles aren't what's responsible for foot drop. It's your neurological connection to those muscles. So by lifting your foot up a bunch of times like this, if you can do that, say 30, 40 times, I would say, I don't think you have foot drop. Or that's how many steps you can take till it does. I wouldn't put any weight on it. A lot of people will put weight on their foot and lift it. That's crazy. You already have drop foot. You don't need anything to hold it down. So then there's the AFOs. AFOs are what goes under your foot. They're orthotics. They prevent your foot from dropping. They also have a lot of good devices where there's elastic strings that go around your foot and your ankle that let your foot just kind of pop back up when you take a step. It's just the expansion and tightening of the bands. But you look those up, talk to your doctors, and talk to any physical therapist that you're using about those devices. They should know about them, and if they don't, they might not be the right person.
Okay, any questions in the audience? Okay. I don't know how my leg's going to get there. All right. As I'm heading out that way, what do you recommend for a person, and by the speaker, what do you recommend for a person that has pain shooting down the leg, and it may not be sciatica, but might be something neurologic?
Find out what it is. Don't find it out on TikTok. Don't find it out on YouTube. Find it out from your doctor's appointment. There's so many things that it can be that when people start to self-diagnose or start to see what worked for one person, whether it's a recipe, whether it's a medicine, whether it's a combination of medicine. Remember this, if somebody tells you something online and they're not a doctor and they're not aware of your condition, whatever is working for them, it may be working because of something else that they're doing. It may be not, but it may not work well with the combination of medicines that you're currently taking. So don't read into that. Always talk to your neurologist and your healthcare provider before switching something, because we get a lot of bad information, and the people who have the best information are usually the ones that are out doing stuff and not posting that stuff online.
So we're hearing more and more from people who are sitting too long in scooters, wheelchairs, not able to get out of bed, etc., and they're having that kind of hip pain. I've known people that have told me in the last few weeks, from people in many different states, they've gone for cortisone injections, to steroid shots, etc. They've had physical therapy, massage therapy, acupuncture, and there's no relief to the pain.
Okay, the relief comes from standing. Okay, when you sit for too long or all the time, the muscles here shorten. So you end up here. This is about the degree of flexion you're in when you're sitting down at the hips. If you stay like that all the time, just like when we heard from the doctor about contractures are shortening of a tendon. So if you keep your arm bent like this for a month, anybody been in a cast? You take the cast off, it's painful to straighten your arm. Imagine doing it for a year. You may never be able to straighten your arm again. So if these muscles here shorten, one of those muscles just happens to connect in your leg. It's responsible for hip flexion, but it also connects in your spine. So if that muscle shortens and the tendon shortens and you have a contracture there, that's going to cause back pain, tremendous amount of back pain to try to stand up. You don't want that to happen. You don't want to lose the fight with gravity, and you don't want to be the person that's like this that doesn't have to be like that. There are conditions that make people like this, but the most common reason for people being like that is sitting too long without standing up. I don't even like sitting on my couch. I'll lay on my couch rather than sit on my couch. I do enough driving, and that's the most sitting I do all day.
This person first, since I ran away from her.
So I've been watching a doctor that's online, and she says that there is a way from doing like exercise that you do it causes your brain to reroute the
That's
signal.
neuroplasticity.
Okay,
So
so
that's-
it's
go ahead.
true, it can do that then, so if
Okay.
you do it long enough.
I'll give you an example. Neuroplasticity, a good way and a bad way. I mean, that's your ability. If your hip flexors stop working, and that happens. I have a lot of people who can't lift their leg up like this, but if you turn their foot out like this, they can lift their leg up. That's because you're using your adductors instead of your hip flexors to raise your leg. When you walk, are you able to walk? Do you swing your leg sometimes?
I do sometimes.
Okay, do you realize that that's neuroplasticity? It's not the best form of it, but what your body did was your body found another pattern to allow you to still walk. It's
Which
not the
causes me
best
to fall.
way, but that's neuroplasticity at its best. I mean, that's you're walking with that, with having drop foot or whatever is causing you to do that, and you're not staying still, you're not falling over, you found a way to do it. That's not great for your back. Physical therapy can help you through that, but that's a great example of neuroplasticity and rerouting.
If I recall correctly, I remember seeing you make a presentation back in Fort Lauderdale 17 or 18 years ago at an MS presentation.
That was me.
Yes, it was. If I recall, at that time, you also offered some other suggestions for helping to improve your mobility and how you deal with MS. What were those suggestions? I need a refresher.
Okay, well, that's something that it'd take a lot, 17 years ago. It probably was a lot of stuff I talked about today. I can do a whole program on a specific thing, such as what you just said. If I did a whole program on something like that, it'd be fine. I can take you through the steps, and there'd have to be more participants. Today was difficult. People didn't want to participate. Do I look that good doing the stuff that you're going to learn everything from me? I have normal movement patterns, so it's more difficult to learn from me than showing somebody else up here who's may have some issues with their movement patterns, but then are shown the right way to do it. But there's a lot of different ways. It's steps, baby steps. Nothing happens fast. If you want it to happen fast, it's probably going to happen either incorrectly or not going to happen at all, or you're going to quit. So you got to be patient, but you also have to be diligent and continue doing as much as you can without overdoing it.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else online. When dragging leg is also drop foot, any exercises for dragging?
Exercises for dragging. That's the one I really don't like because it's a neurological problem, and if your hip flexors don't properly work, you're going to end up dragging. So the best thing to do is figure out how long you can go without dragging, and then take a 2-minute break. If you take a 2-minute break, your nerves cool down, things get back to normal, and you might be able to go back into the walking pattern that you had before you dragged. And that goes for everybody and everything. Even when I'm doing resistance exercise, number 7 or 8, number 8 rep to the problematic side is usually the failing rep number. Doesn't matter how much weight they use, it's just the 7 or 8 times they do it cuts off the transmission of the nerve to the muscle that's coming back.
That's it.
Well,
Okay.
Thank you guys very much. And if there's
Thank you very much, Jeff.
There's one thing I want you to go home with. It is do the best you can to be the person that you envision yourself being. That's it. Thank you very much.
For everybody online whose questions we did not get to, sorry, we just ran out of time. There weren't that many. All right. Thank you again for coming today. I want to thank everybody online as well. Thank you all. Have a great day. Good night.